Welcome back to this episode of the Life Illuminated podcast. I'm Maggie Kelly, your host. I am excited to introduce to you today Shea Leonard. Shea is a physician's assistant, a functional medicine practitioner, a health coach, specializing in mental health, gut health, and hormone health. So,
Yes.
welcome, Shea.
Thank you, Maggie. I am so excited. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. Tell me a little bit about how you got started because you've got this great story that began just when you were a teenager, right?
Yes, my story has so many details and ups and downs, but in general, I have always been interested in medicine, more from a conventional standpoint. And since I was very little, I wanted to be a doctor, but I started really going through my own health crisis at the age of 16. I actually started having seizures on my menstrual cycle, which was very odd, only on my menstrual cycle. So I had my first one when I was 16, no family history. It was on my period. And basically, started seeing neurologists and specialists, and they placed me on anticonvulsants and epilepsy medication and things like that. And really, no one ever, dove into the hormone aspect. And me being at 16, I was very inquisitive and asking things like, is it my menstrual cycle? Is there something wrong with my hormones? Or, what do I need to change? And really the only answers I was getting was, you need to be on prescription medications, you know, probably for the rest of your life. It has nothing to really do with your menstrual cycle or anything like that. And so that kind of went on for years. I ended up advocating for myself so much that I ended up kind of doing what you're not supposed to do, but taking myself off at a very young age, like 17, of the medication and saying, you know what, there's more to this story, really diving in, looking into someone for answers and a more of a functional medicine standpoint. And really that kind of went on for years. And I ended up pursuing medicine as a PA, went through PA school, still had no answers really, really kind of started finding out that, yeah, sure, there could be some menstrual cycle issues, but still hadn't really met someone that was really going to help me with that. So I go through PA school and I start practicing medicine, and I was so sick. My first year as a PA, I was seeing 35 patients a day and I was miserable. I had mono, strep throat multiple times, tons of viruses, was just sick. My poor husband, I was miserable and exhausted, and I was only 24. I shouldn't feel that way. I wanted to quit my job as a PA in the first year because I was so mentally and physically exhausted. And that's where I finally found a functional medicine provider who changed my life. She's a mentor and a friend. She's one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And for the first time ever, I remember sitting in her office and she said, there's a reason for this. Let's dive in. Let's figure this out together. And I was a PA. I had been around conventional medicine, and not a single person ever said, let's figure this out together. And it was so amazing and life-changing. Of course, she changed my life. I could not feel any better than I do now. So much so that I left conventional medicine to start practicing as a functional medicine provider, going to functional medicine school and really changing my life. And it's been the best thing ever. And that's what I'm doing currently.
Well, tell us, there's a lot of people that are probably listening right now who don't have any clue what it means to be in functional medicine. So,
Yeah.
do you mind just giving us a little sense of what that looks like?
Absolutely. So I have been trained in a conventional medicine model. So let's talk about what that looks like. It's very much a medical model of, we are searching for a diagnosis to be made based on a symptom that presents. And we typically use things like prescription medications, maybe surgical interventions. And of course, there are some lifestyle changes that can be implemented. Largely, conventional medicine is amazing, life-saving for triage, stabilization, things like that. Unfortunately, about 90% of chronic disease is things that natural medicine or functional medicine or root cause medicine needs to be the primary type of care. And what that looks like is looking at diet, looking at nutrition, looking at epigenetic changes, how the mind impacts biochemistry, how our mind and our thinking patterns impact our genes, really diving into stress, crappy food, toxins, addressing those things instead of, oh, you feel anxious, you must just have generalized anxiety disorder. Here's Lexapro, see you never. What? There's a reason you're feeling anxious. This is coming from somewhere else. Or, you're having menstrual issues or whatever the case may be, headaches every day. Functional medicine is about finding the root cause and allowing your body to heal. The body's so resilient. It wants to be well. And so really finding that out, giving the tools naturally to sustain that health long term. And good health repels disease. And that's our goal.
Yeah, and I was trained under Deepak Chopra as a meditation instructor, and
Wow.
have spent many years. And
Yeah.
in this last 5 years or so, he's always been an Ayurvedic practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from a more holistic sense, just like you're talking about functional root
Yeah.
cause medicine. But in the
Mm-hmm.
last 5 years or so, really the focus for him has been on not just gut health, but the inflammatory process
Yeah.
throughout the entire system. Can you
Mm-hmm.
speak to that, since I know you are also very much a gut health practitioner?
Absolutely. So inflammation, we're finding out, to be a really big cause of chronic disease in general. And what causes inflammation? Bad food, toxins, and stress. That's it. It's really pretty simple. But a lot of that stuff falls into our modern lifestyle that we feel is normal. It's very not normal or conducive for health. So having processed foods every day or even several times a week, having very toxic negative thought patterns, not getting adequate sleep, not making self-care a priority, that all causes inflammation in the body. All of those things can be toxic to the system. Say we take in a food that's covered in chemical laden ranch dressing, and our body sees it as a foreign invader. It mounts this autoimmune response, which sets off all of these inflammatory mediators and markers, and sometimes that can start attacking other parts of our body. And that's why we see this rise in autoimmune disease in such young people, especially at this time. Not just that, we're seeing colon cancer in 20s and 30s and all of these things. And it all is coming down to these nutrient poor foods, these toxins, and this stress that we call modern lifestyle currently.
Yes, and someone usually, I'm guessing, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but usually someone would come to you when there's an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you also how do you get across that to them, that their standard operating procedure, what they're consuming, not just what they're eating, but what they're
Mm-hmm.
consuming everywhere, is a
Right.
contributing factor, and the shift really needs to come from there?
Yeah. So it's pretty simple, and I try to break it down and make it not overwhelming. I do a lot of functional medicine testing up front, so that is helpful because there is just something. Do I believe that we can do a lot of those things without testing? Of course. Do I feel that testing is very informative? Yes. Does it help the client see when they may be skeptical? Yes. And that's where I really like to use it. Like, okay, so we do see this inflammatory process. You're coming to me because you don't feel well. So you know that what you're doing every day is not conducive for health. But what you do every day, we just need to maximize the good stuff, minimize the harmful stuff, and prioritize healing. And that's what I tell people. And that's how we keep it simple. It's not only eat this, don't eat this. You need to be perfect and avoid this. It's, hey, let's make the majority of our life and the majority of our choices positive ones. Minimize as much as possible these negative things, including toxic people, toxins, toxic food, and toxic thoughts. And then make sure you're making your health, mental, emotional, spiritual, a priority. Oftentimes, it's all flip flopped. We maximize bad food, overworking, not taking breaks, having very self critical, self sabotaging thought patterns or behaviors. All of that stuff is greatly contributing to chronic disease states. So, really rewiring those thought process is the most helpful. I start all of my clients off with mindset work because if I want our 6 month program to be successful, they need to know how placebo works, what their mindset does, how they can manifest and visualize health for themselves, and how amazing that's going to be in our journey when we start diving into more deeper things. But we always start with mindset.
And so that's probably how you and I got connected then, I'm
Yeah.
guessing, is because part of your mindset training includes meditation, right?
Absolutely. And I practiced in psychiatry for years as a PA. So I am very into that. And that was a big part of conventional psychiatry that I saw that was missing, hugely missing. It was not focused on thought patterns or belief patterns. It was very much just prescriptions and send you out the door. So,
Well, going back to that conventional model, right?
right.
You've got a problem, let me give you a pill to fix it, right? So,
Yep,
not
exactly.
having the full holistic viewpoint,
Hmm.
widening the
Yeah.
lens wide enough to see the whole picture and the whole person and the whole problem,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, realizing that, it's our mind is not separate from our body and vice versa. They're so connected. And I will be the first to tell you that I did not learn that in school. So people who are practicing that way, we weren't taught. We were not taught that way. Now, if you seek that out on your own, amazing, and I'm definitely not to ever blame because that was not taught, that those things are together. It's more, okay, you have this one symptom, treat this symptom instead of looking at the whole forest.
Well,
So
do you see medicine overall and changing and shifting towards a more functional integrative approach?
it seems so. I do feel people are asking more questions. I do think there is, unfortunately, a lot of time constraint. I think of the conventional medicine model. Well, you have to see this amount of people to make sure that you can pay for this stuff. And then insurance companies require only this amount of time, or you have to fail these drugs before this. Just that's what is hard, is even providers who want to do better or maybe want to change, there's just limitations on them from outside sources that make it challenging if you're going to stay in that model. But I do feel people are asking questions, and I think it's patient advocacy that is really starting to get providers to think, there probably is a better way. If you're willing to make these lifestyle changes, then let's absolutely do that. But we also have to realize that a lot of times as patients, we go in just wanting a quick fix as well. Sometimes our worst enemies, saying, I just want a quick fix. I don't really want to go, exercise or eat organic, and then that's on us. So it has to be a joint um,
Well,
focus,
therein lies the whole mindset conversation, right? I think the
right?
mindset isn't so much coming from the patient themselves as it is coming from society
Hmm.
overall, that we've
Absolutely.
been taught forever and ever that the quick fix is the way to go, and
Yeah.
I don't need to work very hard, just tell me what to
Hmm.
do, doc. And I think
Yes.
that also comes from a historic view of the physician being
Mhm.
the one who has the answers, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then on top of it, we've got a society that is overrun by stress. And of course,
Hmm.
these days, we really are
Yeah.
just trying to survive. And we are in survival mode with COVID, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So getting the point across that and this is the same kind of point I try to get across from a spiritual perspective when I'm working with my clients on a spiritual
Hmm.
level, is that
Hmm.
we're not talking about hard work like framing a house in 100-degree heat in the middle of the summer hard work.
Hmm.
We're talking about hard work holistically from a body, mind, and spirit perspective where the three come together in union or yoga, right? And
Yes.
then if we have a conception or misconception that hard work looks like agony,
Yeah.
um, give me the one pill, the one shot.
Mm,
I'll be fine.
mhm.
I'm out of here.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting because I think too sometimes we tend to take our health for granted. I'm sure you did
Mm.
at 16 thinking, I'm 16, what the heck,
Yep. Yep.
We don't really realize that we are fallible, we are not invincible, and nothing's permanent, including us.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, how did things resolve themselves for your issues that you started with and the epileptics kind of issues?
Yeah, mine really started with dietary changes. Back then I was eating honey buns and Dr. Peppers and pizza sticks and all sorts of fun stuff in the 90s that, no one really told us that was bad. And God bless my parents, they're amazing, but they didn't know, they didn't tell us. It's different nowadays, but that's what I was eating. I was having horrible gut issues through all of this. No one mentioned my gut ever because your gut doesn't have anything to do with your brain, right? Back then that was the case. No one ever mentioned diet ever, not one time. So I kept eating that way. I was actually covered in acne from head to toe. Also, how are those things not connected? There's dysbiosis, there's this imbalance, there's things going on, and then your hormones are impacted, right? It was just a downstream effect of a body in stress. um, and so dietary changes was the first thing that I made, and it changed everything. I had a functional medicine provider who did food sensitivity testing on me. I avoided the main groups because I was positive to them: gluten, dairy, corn, soy. And basically, that was the initial part of my whole healing journey. We balanced some hormones and did some specific protocols as well. But foods were the biggest by far. Healing my gut is where I saw the biggest changes. And I saw changes quick, very, very quick.
So, where do you think the biggest roadblock is for you as a practitioner to getting this information across? Like, it's so simple, but
Mhm.
it's not easy to convey or to have land over there, right?
Yes. And I think that's it. And that's something I find myself telling people often, that it's simple. It's just not easy. Exactly what you said. And sometimes there's a few different things, but it is simple. And that's what I like to say. We just need to maximize the good stuff and minimize all the bad and just prioritize healing. So I always try to tell people, even when we get all this testing back and they have mercury toxicity and they have gut dysbiosis and their vitamins are all low and their mitochondria are exhausted, it's okay. Take a step back because we know that it is an issue with maximizing, minimizing, and prioritizing. That's what it comes down to. And so I feel like getting out there that we can truly heal. I think people don't understand that. That no, we can. Our body can heal. I mean, heal from chronic disease. And how to do that, and really education, inspiration, empowerment, that is really what is needed.
Well, and I think just coming from my side of the fence, from when people are in, I would have to call it desperation. They're at a
Yeah.
place where I'm stuck, I'm paralyzed, I can't live like this, I don't want to live like this. I know
Mm,
there's something more, but I don't know how to achieve it or get to it, or back to the idea of quick fix. I think part of it is being able to get people, at least from my perspective, one of the first things I teach is self compassion, right?
yeah. Mhm.
That who you are fundamentally is perfectly fine, just who you
Mhm.
are. There's really nothing wrong. There
Right.
are maximize, minimize, and prioritize, just what you said. There are
Yeah.
things we can do and tweak, and where you are today is not where you're going to be in a month
Mhm.
or a year.
Right.
And you wouldn't want to
Mhm.
be anyway,
Yeah.
right? None of us want to stay
Exactly.
stagnant in whatever part we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We want to grow and continue to grow in that way. So I think part of, at least from where I come from as a spiritual teacher, it comes from understanding that you're okay first. It's all
Mm-hmm.
okay. Having
Mm-hmm.
enough self-compassion to say, it's okay for me to take care of me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's not like you need to take care of me. I need to take care of me.
Right.
To get the
Absolutely.
rest that I need. I tell people, if you fall asleep in meditation, it's fine. All that means is that you're tired. And what you
Mm-hmm.
really want to key into is that you're tired and your body's saying,
Yeah.
get the rest you need. In the very same way that your epileptic seizures were saying, hey, ding dongs are not going to work, lady.
Right. Exactly. My brain is not functioning well, and this is a signal. So pay attention. Yeah.
Right, and I think part of it starts with some of it, at least I think for women a lot of the time. It's like, "Oh no, I don't want to, I can't take too much time for me because that would be selfish." Well,
Mm-hmm.
who are you if you're having a seizure on the bathroom floor? Is that
Mm-hmm.
is that better?
Right.
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 So, I love your little three things: maximize, minimize, prioritize. And so, what would you maximize if someone comes to you and they are in agony, they're not doing well, their skin doesn't look well, they're not feeling right?
Mm-hmm.
Give me or our audience a little sense of what the maximize, minimize, and prioritize looks like if you're
Yeah,
the average
absolutely.
person listening.
Yeah, and it will be unique for each person, depending based on specific testing. But of course, we want to maximize the vital functions needed for life. And that is, positive spiritual connection, positive mindset, really, health affirmations, as well as nutrients, oxygen, clean water, these vital things that we don't do. Maximize self care, whether it be from grounding, earthing, some sort of meditation, movement. That's what we want to maximize. We want to maximize good things, nutrient dense food, resting, sleep, and minimize things that are harmful, like toxic beauty products or chemical laden processed foods. We definitely want to lessen automated negative thinking patterns and toxic thoughts, and minimize any of those type of things that really worsen. Sugar for you, it might be gluten for you, it might be dairy, whatever the case may be based on certain testing. But in general, just minimizing those type of things.
And then prioritize.
Yes, and then prioritize a healing environment. I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the biggest issues is we don't live or put our place in an environment that's conducive for healing, that's in a parasympathetic rest and digest state. Instead, we are go, 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 do, do, do. I'm going to work out. Even if I'm going to go work out, which is self-care, I'm going to do it harder than you and longer than you. And then we're still sympathetic, we're still in a sympathetic state. And unfortunately, nowadays we see people bragging about how stressed they are, or I am more stressed than you, or I run on less sleep than you, and I get more done. And it's like, oh my gosh, I want to be the person who's like, I took an hour-long Epsom salt bath last night and slept 10 hours, and I feel amazing.
And by the
You
way,
know?
you feel guilty about it, right?
Exactly. And so prioritizing an environment for healing, where we can have laughter and joy and fun and spiritual connection and meaningful relationships, that needs to be our priority, not go, 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 do, do constantly.
Well, you brought up a really great point, and I don't think a lot of our listeners will understand this whole idea of the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
So, can you speak to that for a moment?
Absolutely. So we have the sympathetic nervous system. That is our fight or flight mode. That's what people hear about. It's when, the deer is getting chased by the cheetah, and it has to contract all of its organs. Why? Because it doesn't need to digest while it's running for its life. It doesn't need to eat while it's running for its life. It needs its heart and blood pressure to be up because it's running for miles and miles. Okay, so that's our sympathetic state. Our body tends to be in a sympathetic state when we feel stressed and it thinks we're fighting for our life. That could be physical stress, like toxic food or processed foods or food sensitivities. It could also be mental, emotional, or spiritual stress that can cause biochemical changes to promote a sympathetic dominant state. We don't digest when we're in a sympathetic dominant state. We don't repair and heal because that's not what it's for. It's only meant for small spurts of survival. Instead, nowadays, it's a constant chronic sympathetic state of trying to survive day to day, when really we need to be living our life in a parasympathetic state with only short, tiny bits of life-saving adrenaline or cortisol release. You know, if we are about to step off a curb and a car is coming and our body takes us back, amazing. And then you need to go about your day resting and digesting. And so rest and digest is where we are repairing, we are healing, we're digesting foods, we're absorbing nutrients. It's our normal state. That's where we need to hang out vast majority of the time.
Yes, and this is something I stress a lot with my meditation students, right? That the process of meditating for even 10 to 15 minutes
Mm,
at a time has the ability to provide as much restorative and healing
yeah.
to your body as sleeping 8 hours, right?
Hmm.
And that sleep is essential.
Yes.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that part about, let me one up you on my stress. Because I hear a lot of that sort of talk about, oh, well, I only sleep 5 hours a night. And maybe,
Yeah.
maybe you ought to rethink that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like maybe you feel you're doing fine, but what does that look like 5 or 10 years from now? You know, it eventually can turn into type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular disease or these things. And that kind of comes back to this functional medicine view too of why do we wait to be sick? Why? Let's prevent as much as possible. Let's be proactive about our health and really avoid waiting to get to the pain point that makes you make a change. And that is a mindset shift as well.
Well, and I'm just going to throw us in a different direction for a second. Just from a global perspective, for me,
Hmm.
it almost appears as though COVID is the global conscious way of getting us all to stop
Yeah.
and reevaluate all of it.
Hmm.
All of it.
Hmm.
Forced reevaluation of your life, your priorities, your health, your
Yeah.
job, your spiritual self, your
Yeah.
relationships, all of it. And I haven't seen as much of that kind of conversation in the past years that I've done this as this one this year for sure.
Hmm.
2025,
Yeah.
right? It's all about I'm trying to find my purpose. I felt
Hmm.
paralyzed and stuck. I was unhappy. I've been unhappy. I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm not sure, had it not been for COVID, and this is just my perception, had it not been for COVID, that as many of us would be reevaluating ourselves overall the way we are today.
Yeah, I think that I've seen that a lot as well. I've seen many psychiatric patients, also my health coach clients have similar experiences where we did see a big shift. And I really personally did. I opened my business during COVID and I got out of conventional medicine during COVID. And that was a big step and change, but I felt that pull. And I think I had been able to slow down enough to listen to my intuition and my energy and source energy and everything like that to really follow what that alignment really looked like. So we
Exactly.
we just don't hear. We don't hear it. We don't feel it when we're go 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 all the time.
Well, and that points to your, how functional medicine and all of that relates to our mental health, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
In a very, very big way. So
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit about your one-on-one programs and what you offer to your clients.
Yeah. So I really figured out through my own health crisis what I needed. And unfortunately for me personally, I did not need prescription medications and good luck, see you in 6 months. That's just not what I personally needed. And so when I started writing my program, and from a functional medicine standpoint, I said, what would I love? I would want someone who is a partner, an advocate for me, who is in conversation about everything, educating me, telling me what's going on, how we're going to do these different things. Do you agree with that? Allowing me to have input, because we know our body more than anybody else. I will be the first to tell my clients that I don't know you better than you know you. And I want you to be a part of your health journey. Of course, that's where we've seen this disconnect as well, is the patient's not really doesn't have control. And when we come back to this in like my program, I want them to take back control of their health and feel they have control of their health. And so that's a big part of my program. But what it looks like is I do a lot of amazing functional medicine testing based on their symptoms and some of their history, whether it's genetic testing, food and chemical sensitivity, hormones and cortisol and thyroid and sex hormones. And then, of course, nutrient and gut health as well. Looking at all of that stuff, heavy metals, if that's something we're worried about, and looking at all of that stuff to start putting some pieces together. And then we see each other weekly for 6 months, every single week. It's concierge. My clients text me all the time. I worked on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and let me tell you, I love it. I love it so much. We text each other, we support each other, and so it's different. You have someone to help you. When we come in and we need to, start making quite big changes, having that accountability week to week, having that support. If you're just frustrated because I've had this happen at the grocery store and you're frustrated because you don't know what to eat or cook for dinner because you have all these food sensitivities, you call me and I will walk you through, FaceTime me at the grocery store, and we'll get you something good to eat. That makes a big difference to really, really help support someone on their journey and help them tremendously. We do a lot of mindset work as well. With my history in psychiatry, it's it's number one important. It's the most important. So mindset, mental health, and spiritual health, and we spend a lot of time focused on that and really helping people gain back control and understanding of what that looks like as well.
And so if you're remotely, how do you go about getting the labs and things?
Yeah, all of my lab tests are directly drop shipped to the client. So I am in Texas. I have clients in California, Montana, Wyoming, everywhere, and they are drop shipped to their house, and they can get them. Two of them are blood draws. Typically, the others they can be done at home, and any local blood draw facility can do that. And then they ship them. I get all the results, and then we meet on Zoom weekly, texting, various herbal protocols or supplemental protocols, nutritional protocols based on all of that testing as we spend the next 6 months working together.
Wow, that's phenomenal. That's
Yeah, it's
phenomenal.
amazing. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, it's good to love what you do, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. I mean, when I was at the point of just getting through PA school and being ready to quit, I realized that there was an issue. And so coming full circle and realizing how much I do love medicine, and health and people, I lost that for a while, and it feels good to have that back.
Well, sometimes it's just a matter of tweaking and taking all of the wonderful experiences and education
Yeah.
and your own personal positive
Hmm.
things about you and finding a different way to express them.
Exactly. Yeah, and having that freedom to be creative and work individually and not feel outside pressure to prescribe certain things or do certain things. I feel so much more free, and I have seen the results not only personally but in my clients, where I don't have those negative kind of exposures impacting our journey or their journey.
Yeah, it's sort of like for me, I was really interested in the psychotherapy, but I'm a meditation teacher, and so much of the background of my experience is Buddhism and Hinduism and all kinds of other spiritual backgrounds. So I wanted to find a way to marry the two, which is how I
Mm-hmm.
ended up being a spiritual coach. So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I know exactly what you mean. It's just a matter of tweaking the things that are speaking to you and sometimes screaming at you.
Yes.
You know, because
Yeah.
I've had clients and students come to me and say, "Well, I'm 50, I can't change directions now." Well, who said?
Mm-hmm.
Where are the rules?
Exactly. And oh, when you do, the feeling of relief. I had felt a weird fear, and I didn't even know where it was coming from, because I had actually kind of gone off on a different direction, still in medicine, doing something else. And I thought that's what I wanted. Actually, I was kind of told by society that that was kind of the direction I needed to go. And I had a very uncomfortable gut feeling the entire time. As soon as I realized finally after doing that, I actually left a job and started doing something else. After about 6 months, ended up deciding on the functional medicine. And I mean, immediately, it was just alignment and just, I can't even explain the feeling of this is good and this is right, and haven't looked back since. So,
Yeah, and so who's ever listening to this right now, that's a really key point is being able to touch into your intuitive sense of self, your intuitive knowing. So
mm-hmm.
I think when you talk, Shay, about gut health, it isn't just about what we're eating. It's also
Right.
about that intuitive gut feeling. I've
Uh,
noticed at least even this week, a really significant gut feeling that I did not follow. And
mm.
afterwards, I'm like, why? You know,
Why? I know.
why
Yeah.
didn't you act on what your intuitive self was screaming?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's another piece of our gut health that we need to be attentive to.
Absolutely. So, we don't have to speak too much on this, but the enteric nervous system is extremely important. It makes all of your serotonin, about 95%. It makes more of your dopamine. That's in your gut. The nerve fibers are afferent. They run gut to brain, not vice versa. 90% is our gut telling our brain how to respond. And so we have all these messengers and hormones, and we're picking up perception, we're picking up thoughts, and environmental energies and things, and we interpret that in the gut, and it tells the brain. So we definitely need to listen to our gut intuition, and it's so important and really cool. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, this has just been fabulous, Shay. I've really
yes,
enjoyed getting to know you a little bit and chatting with you and hearing about your wealth of information that you're sharing with
thank you,
some very
Maggie.
lucky people. Um,
Thank you, Maggie.
how do people find you?
So I am on Instagram at Shea Leonard, just my name, and then also my website, www.shayleonard.com. And you can message me on there. You can apply. I will give you a call, 10 or 15-minute phone call, just to chat about your health concerns, your goals, your needs, and discuss what working together might look like.
And for those listening, Shay is spelled SHAE.
Yes, SHAE and then LEONARD.
Right. Okay. Any final words or thoughts or inspirations you want to share with our audience?
I would just really, to sum up everything that we kind of mentioned, is that start working on yourself, whether it starts with love or whatever the case may be, but really working, making that a priority, and not putting yourself on the back burner anymore. And how simple we could do that just by making small changes day by day, like meditation or going outside barefoot and grounding for 10 minutes. It's a wonderful way. If you just start doing that every day, you will see positive impact. And so really trying to make some of those choices day by day, adding them into your current situation.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Shea. It's been wonderful getting to know you. I'm so glad you joined us today on the Life Illuminated podcast.
Thank you, Maggie. Had so much fun. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yay!
Let me